Send me a unit, black male tase.
Help! 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 Help!
Stop! Stop!
Help!
Stop! 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 Stop!
Help! I'm not help! Help! She's trying to hurt me! Help! Help! Why are you doing this?
Describe what people see on that dash cam, not dash cam, that body cam video.
They see the dangers of police work. Any given day or time as our officers go out on the road, they can encounter that type of situation. Typically throughout the day, every officer conducts traffic stops of one nature or a different type, and any one of them could lead to that type of scenario.
Do you think this could have ended much worse?
Most definitely. There's no doubt in my mind that we were so fortunate that her injuries weren't more serious than we saw.
Can you elaborate what she was responding to, what she was doing, what she was talking about with this suspect? I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. I just looked at it, Tristan.
Timothy Jones.
Yeah, so I looked at it a million times. What was going on in the video? I know we can't hear the first part of the audio because of the pre-record, but what we're seeing, I know the report kind of describes it, but on your take of things.
The officer was on routine patrol, doing routine patrol activities, monitoring traffic, looking for criminal or suspicious activity, when the officer observed this Mr. Jones with an expired license plate. The officer pulled around, placed the vehicle behind the suspect vehicle, and initiated a traditional traffic stop. A typical activity that every one of our officers do practically every single day. The next thing to happen was once the traffic stop was effected, Mr. Jones exited the vehicle and returned to the center between the two cars, the suspect vehicle and the police vehicle. While they were engaged in conversation, and the subject, Mr. Jones, decided he didn't want to stay there any longer. In spite of the officer's directions to stay put, don't walk away, stop fidgeting, take your hands out of your pockets, giving him a series of commands in which he didn't comply and started to return back to the vehicle. After giving several warnings, she drew her taser and actually had to fire the taser to try to stop Mr. Jones from fleeing the scene. He resisted, he failed to comply with her commands, and entered the vehicle in spite of that, and was able to shrug off the effects of the taser and drive away while she was still in the vehicle trying to get free from it.
Would you say that traffic stops could be one of the most dangerous jobs police officers have to do?
I say it, every law enforcement professional and the ICP and the FBI say that traffic stops are all the most dangerous type of incident officers involved in.
What was Mr. Jones's first, I guess, mistake that he made?
It goes back a long ways. Mr. Jones has a criminal history and a series of traffic violations that are about a half inch to 2/3 of an inch in thickness. He's been he's considered a habitual traffic offender, which means he's got a long litany of driving while license suspended and other traffic law violations on his record. So it didn't start today, or start the day of that incident.
But as far as that incident, what did he do wrong that led to this situation escalating to the point that it did?
It was his driving, and the fact that the vehicle had an expired tag.
But the way he acted, was it the point when he walked away from the officer and didn't listen to her? What got us to the point where she was being dragged by a car?
Oh, he was clearly acting suspicious during the interview portion of the stop. Began fidgeting around with his hands. Wasn't really paying as much attention to her as you can see in that video. And then a decision was made in his mind, and that happens often when we're in contact with someone who has a criminal background or has some reason to want to not be stopped by the police for a criminal matter. They come to a point where they have to make a decision to flee or to fight. And most of the time, thank goodness, they decide to flee and run away. In this case, he decided to try to flee and fortunately not try to fight the officers. Mr. Jones he's over 6 feet tall and over 280 pounds. So he tried to flee, and the officer had to try to keep him there and facilitate that arrest.
Was he armed? Was there any weapons found on him after the arrest?
No.
He wasn't arrested there, he turned himself in?
After the, yes, he
Yes.
fled the scene and later turned himself into.
So there's no way to know if he had a gun on him at the time, if he was reaching or fidgeting for
We
that reason?
didn't observe one at that time.
Can you tell us why we see the car rolling, but we don't see the officer being dragged the 300 feet? Can you tell us why?
During the encounter, while Mr. Jones was in the car trying to flee and the officer was trying to stop him, the body camera became dislodged and fell off and tumbled on the street.
Can you give some advice to people who are pulled over for a traffic stop? What should they do?
First of all, remain calm. Some folks, it's their first time having a traffic stop, but the biggest thing is to stay calm and be compliant with the officer's requests. It's a simple thing, in spite of the fact that people may be fearful of not knowing what's going to happen or getting a ticket, but the thing is to just communicate, be natural, is you cannot be suspicious, be unsuspicious, and just have a conversation with the officer. Even if they're afraid or frightened, share that and just have a conversation. When folks start being non-communicative, and becoming suspicious and fidgeting in the car and looking in the glove box and going to the seat, that raises suspicion as to what's going on and why this behavior is occurring. So being calm, cool, and collected, it will be over very shortly, and everyone can go in their different directions.
And Chief, I know the officer was fortunately not severely injured, but can you talk about some of her injuries and how she is doing today?
The officer's doing much better. The injuries sustained, she did have to receive treatment. I believe there's some road rash and soreness, of course, from falling and rolling on the ground. But we're very, very, very fortunate that the injuries weren't more severe.
Chief, what would you say to people who tell you the officer acted in a way she shouldn't have? She shouldn't have tased him because she just pulled him over for an expired tag. He wasn't, wanted for any reason. He didn't have a weapon on him. She shouldn't have tased him. Why do you think she did the right thing?
She did the right thing because she was doing her job. Her job is to keep the community safe, to keep the public safe, to keep the traffic flow in the area moving properly, and that people are following the law. Mr. Jones broke the law when he was operating a vehicle with his license suspended. Mr. Jones broke the law when he was operating a vehicle with the license plate was expired. Mr. Jones broke the law when he failed to comply with the demands of the officer at the scene, to stay there and not to leave. He then broke the law as he assaulted her upon his trying to flee and shoved her away from the vehicle. So there's no one else at fault, no one else to be blamed. Had he been compliant, he would not have been tased.
And Chief, can you talk about, I know in January, 3 other officers had their cruisers hit while they were doing traffic stops, and another officer just the other night had their cruiser hit while also trying to stop a suspect who was being suspicious. I guess, can you talk about a little bit, especially talking about the cruisers being hit during traffic stops? I know January was Move Over Awareness Month. Talk about that aspect of you're also having kind of this maybe issue, to frame it, of people not being aware of what officers are doing during traffic stops, of remembering that you have to move over and pay attention.
Certainly. The move over law, we're all sensitive to in law enforcement, and we're all doing what we can to try to market it and advertise it so that the public is aware, not just for that month, but all year long. The law is in place, and it requires that folks move away from the lane of traffic that the officer is closest to. We did have those incidents with the impacts and vehicle crashes along the highway, but our cars were involved. And we're just so fortunate there were officers who weren't seriously injured as a result of those crashes. It's a serious thing. Some of it's related to distracted driving. Some of it's related to careless driving. But we're hoping that we can educate the public, make them aware of the law, that they need to vacate the lane that's nearest to where the police officer is conducting the traffic stop. And if they can't vacate that lane because there's traffic adjacent to them, they need to slow down to at least 20 miles per hour lower than the speed limit, the posted speed limit in that area. That is necessary for the officer's safety, the people that we've stopped safety on these traffic incidents, and of course for their safety while they're driving down the roadways.
And one more question about the officer involved in the dragging incident. Is she back on duty, and how is she doing mentally?
Yes, she is back, and you can imagine something like that as a terrifying experience, and I think she's doing very well with it.